Hi. If this is your first time to join our meditation, welcome. If you've been here before, been with us for many weeks, welcome back. The knowledge that many of you are out there gives me a great sense of fulfillment, of community, of comfort, and of intention. I have come to think of this time as the moment in our week when we take a big breath. For many of us, this may be the first deep, full, healing, relaxing breath of the week. As I have shared with you and continue to feel is accurate, I believe the entire world is holding its breath. So we gather to create an oasis of time, even a time out from the uncertainty, the worry, the bizarreness, the new normal that will never be normal. We gather to breathe and to center ourselves. In Jewish tradition, in an ancient practice of mindfulness and focused intention, in an act of affirmation paraphrasing the French philosopher Descartes. I breathe, therefore, I am. In fact, I believe that this simple act of breathing in and out in community allows us to feel independent, allows us to reclaim our personal agency and our sense of autonomy. I also find meaning and perspective in Jewishly framing our meditation practice. As we have noticed in previous weeks, this time in the Jewish calendar is marked by a ritual identified as counting the Omer. Quite simply, in ancient days, starting with the second day of Pesach, was the time when a small amount of barley from the early spring harvest was brought daily to the temple in Jerusalem, as our people counted the days until the major spring harvest of wheat that they anticipated 7 weeks later, and that coincides with our festival of Shavuot. It is remarkable to me that this seemingly irrelevant relic of antiquity continues to have resonance in our lives, as this period is a time of counting, a time of anticipation. And as some of you may know, weddings are not permitted during this time in more traditional circles. It is a minor time of mourning, which is why the weddings are not celebrated. Throughout the centuries, additional interpretations and practices were added to the basic structure of counting. For example, the mystics perceived in every one of the 7 weeks that carry us from liberation to revelation, from the Exodus to Mount Sinai, from Pesach to Shavuot, as being governed by one of God's emanations in the world, and thus presents us as microcosms of God's creative presence in the world with a soul trait or characteristic to perfect along the way. The soul trait for the 5th week, which is where we are currently, is Hod, which interestingly means both splendor and humility. The concept of humility comes from the root of the word Hod, which we find similarly in Hoda'ah, which means thanksgiving. Only a person who is aware of his or her limitations can be grateful for any of the number of gifts in our lives. This is a humility. It is not a weakness or negation of self. It is the understanding that in the full exercise of our humanity, and with a clear-eyed honesty that is at the core of our humility, we cannot do everything. We are finite human beings with finite and imperfect talents and abilities, divinely gifted as they may be. In our humility, we acknowledge our limitations in overcoming obstacles and challenges We do not give up or give in. In the full splendor of our humanity, we sometimes give way. We accept what is beyond our power to affect or control. We surrender to a force beyond us and yet that holds us in loving kindness. This is the majesty of understanding. It is an illumination of the fullness and richness of our reality. So, I invite us into the space of humility, not to feel small or weak or ineffectual, but rather to surrender, to feel for even a few moments the comfort, ease, relief, and release of surrender. I find the symbolism particularly apt at this time in our world, as we have been brought face to face with our limitations and with our ultimate lack of control. In the recognition of our limits as human beings, many of us have a new appreciation of the grandeur of which we are a part. This is the beginning of wisdom, of illumination for each of us, out of the humility that allows us to see clearly. We can surrender our false pretenses, our frantic holding on to perceptions that give us a sense of mastery, of authority over our surroundings. Let us find the strength, the wisdom, and the fortitude to let go. Let us find our positions of comfort and yet of attention, gentle attention. Many of us will find sitting in a chair is our best place. Some might feel comfortable on the floor. I invite you to close your eyes or to close them softly, not really focusing on anything that might distract us. And let us breathe in that big, full, healing breath. And let us breathe out slowly, leisurely, easily. Let us breathe in and feel how good that feels. And let us breathe out. And take our time for that exhale. Let us breathe out the holding on, the attempt to be in charge. And let us breathe in the freedom of surrender. We breathe out every false perception of our own control and breathe in the release of surrender to something greater, larger, more enduring than any of us can imagine. We breathe in the spaciousness of surrender. We breathe out all that holds on tightly, leaving us very little room to breathe. We breathe in the surrender to something greater. And we breathe out the illusion that we are in control. We breathe in an honest assessment of our God-given strengths and talents, while we breathe out false humility. Let us fill our souls with the liberation of surrender. Let us exhale whatever holds us tightly, narrowly, in constriction. For these few minutes, let us relish the sense of openness, expansiveness, fullness. That is just us, understanding that we are part of something far greater. That we are part of something that is mysterious, that we cannot fully understand. And let us breathe out the small idea that we can control every challenge, every obstacle, every difficulty. Sometimes we just let go. Let us breathe in a surrender to the perception that allows us to act with ease, purpose, accomplishment, and the ability, when it is right, to let go. And let us breathe out any vain attempt at asserting our power where it cannot. We breathe in freedom, release, openness. We breathe out narrowness, constriction, restriction. On this 33rd, about to become, on this 32nd, about to become the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, the minor holiday we observe as Lag BaOmer. Let us offer the following prayer. To the source of life itself, may I be made aware of my talents, hone them, and use them for your will. May I be granted the ability to continue to learn, grow, and improve so that I can be of service and use in the work of repairing your world. May I never forget that your life breath motivates and enlivens me to do this work. And may I remember that my successes do indeed belong to you. May the pride I feel in a job well done or work well achieved inspire me to greater heights and a passionate desire to teach, lead, and collaborate with others along my path. May I greet each day of this coming week with a resumed sense of purpose and of perspective. And may I never lose sight of the goal to serve you in truth and make manifest your holiness in this world. I thank you. Amen. God bless.